Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name's Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Josh Clifford. We warmly welcome the family of Private Francis Williams, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Francis Williams, who was killed fighting in France in the First World War. Francis Williams was born in 1893 and was one of 3 children of Thomas and Catherine Williams of Greta in the Hunter region of New South Wales. Known as Frank, he attended school nearby at West Wallsend and afterwards worked as a miner in one of the district's many collieries. He was a well-known personality in the local soccer league, playing fullback for the West Wallsend British Football Club. In 1914, Williams married Isabella Dawson, and the couple had a daughter, Vera, soon after. According to his football mates, Frank proved that when the country's call came, he was quite fearless and ready, just as in football, to take part in the defence of his country. He enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at West Wallsend in January 1916, and after a period of training at Broadmeadow Military Camp near Newcastle, embarked for the camps in England as an original member of the 34th Battalion in May 1916. Williams trained with the battalion on the Salisbury Plains near Wiltshire before finally sailing for France 6 months later. The 34th Battalion filed into the trenches for the first time in the relatively quiet Upline sector near Armentières in November, where they spent the bitterly cold winter of 1916. Due to its low-lying conditions, there was relatively little fighting in this sector, although the Australians carried out a regimen of active patrolling and trench raiding during the winter months. German artillery and trench mortar fire was active and routinely bombarded the Australian front line. Williams wrote home to his wife Isabella in December, telling her how he was lucky to be alive after a German shell exploded near him in the front line trench, the concussion of which pitched him over a friend's head. Just a few hours after Isabella had received this letter, she received a telegram informing her that her husband had been killed on the 7th of February 1917. He was just 23 years old. The 34th Battalion War Diary refers to aircraft dropping bombs on the Australian lines and German machine gun fire being particularly active in the Upline sector on the day that Williams was killed, and it's possible that one of these led to his death. He was buried at the Cité Bonjean Military Cemetery in Armentières, where he rests today. Williams's loss was keenly felt within the West Wallsend British Football Club, who remembered him as very popular and one of the best backs who ever wore the blue jersey. No doubt his death also deeply affected Isabella and Vera, who lost a dearly loved husband and father. Francis Williams is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of courage and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frank Williams, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of us. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you a very good evening. Thank you.